Welcome to the NBA Notebook, a series where I share my running thoughts on the NBA season. On today's episode, I want to talk about the three teams who still stand with a perfect undefeated record. And as of recording, that would be the Boston Celtics, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Each of these teams are off to dominant starts to the season, and I want to start right here with the Thunder, because this is some of the most impressive roster building of the last decade. There are so many multifaceted young players who all complement each other to perfection. And so if this continues in the direction that it's trending, the Thunder are going to be a powerhouse for years to come. But let's get into what has made them so great. And we have to start by talking about how their defense is elite. They have arguably the best collection of perimeter defenders in the entire NBA last season, and then they went ahead and added Alex Caruso this summer for an embarrassment of riches. So it's no surprise the Thunder rank first in basically every defensive metric to start the season. They are wreaking havoc by causing turnovers, averaging 20 points off turnovers per game while limiting mistakes of their own. Chet Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are two of the league leaders in stocks through 3 games, and these huge defensive plays are energizers that have the Thunder rolling each night. It's demoralizing even for the 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic when Holmgren blocks his shot and then runs the floor for a monster dunk on the other end. Chet on his own has been an absolute beast defensively. He's such a versatile presence who can cover so much ground and catch you at the rim even when you have him beat. Here he is out on the perimeter holding Trae Young, and then he sprints down for a massive rejection in the paint, and he does the same thing just a few minutes later. So Chet is just a ridiculous defender, and on top of all of that, he can do stuff like this on offense. He's averaging 24 points and 13 rebounds to start the season, and while I doubt his numbers will stay that high, he's an early candidate for most improved, and I'd expect him to stay in the race all season long. So the Thunder have an abundance of depth and there's plenty of players to rave about, but I want to wrap up this segment by talking about SGA because he is in perfect position for an MVP season. He's been dominant on both ends of the floor, his team is going to win a lot of games and he'll be largely responsible for it. But Shai's been flat out unstoppable to start the season, and in order to showcase this, I want to show a stretch from their most recent win over the Atlanta Hawks. So the Thunder right now are up by 1, and we're going to see an example of why SGA is impossible to defend because he uses his speed to burst around the outside of this screen, and even with Capella doing a great job of containing the drive, Shai can just rise up for a smooth pull-up jumper in the mid-range. Back on the other end, we have an example of the Thunder defense being insane. That's Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso defending your pick and roll, and it's great hands by Wallace to poke it free and get a run out for SGA. So now we see the Thunder defense galvanizing their offense like I mentioned, and on the very next play we see SGA come from behind for a block, and when the Thunder secure the stop, Shai stays aggressive and draws 2 free throws. So at this point momentum has officially shifted and the Thunder are in the midst of what will become a 13-0 run. We get another on-ball turnover forced by Cason Wallace, and the Hawks do manage to recover and stop the break, but the Thunder retain possession and Shai uses his gravity to drive and kick, and just like that, it's a 10-point game. The final play I want to talk about is again that Thunder defense forcing Trae into a turnover, and on the way back down, SGA pulls up for a 3-pointer, something he struggled with in the past, but has become a clear point of emphasis for him this season. His 3-point attempts have doubled since last year, and while he's only shooting 30% from deep overall, Shai's actually shooting 37% on pull-up 3-pointers, and he looks very comfortable taking them. And this would really spell trouble for the rest of the NBA if he becomes a full-fledged 3-level scorer, because he's already so difficult to contain getting into the paint. When you combine an MVP talent with a load of depth and maybe the best defense in the league, it's easy to see why the Thunder are title contenders. It's just tough to see how this doesn't work out for them if they all stay healthy and continue trending upwards. There's just ridiculous stuff going on in OKC, and you should be keeping an eye on it because they play great ball on both ends of the floor. Alright, now let's move over to Cleveland and check on what has changed for the Cavaliers, because I know many people had concerns about this team running it back for essentially the 3rd year in a row, but let's not overlook the difference that a new head coach can make, because up to this point, Kenny Atkinson has implemented a new vision for this team and it's paying instant rewards. If you had to summarize what has gone wrong for the Cavaliers in recent years, it would be that their offense was severely lacking despite 2 elite guards and a world-class defense behind them. The Cavs have established themselves as a top-tier defense, but it was their offense that has been holding them back. They were a heliocentric team revolving around Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, taking turns running high pick and roll. It simply felt like too much was riding on Garland or Mitchell to carry the offensive load. But now Atkinson has the Cavs playing with a dynamic approach. We've seen expanded roles for everyone on the team, including a rotation that is going 10 deep by the second quarter. Right now, the Cavs are top 3 in offensive rating, field goal percentage, and 3-point percentage to start the season. And what's most impressive about this is the Cavs aren't relying too heavily on any individual player. It's been a balanced approach with big scoring nights from Evan Mobley, Dean Wade, and Darius Garland, while Donovan Mitchell has only outright led the team in scoring once to start the year. Mobley has been an early standout as he's being used in a totally different way from seasons past. We've seen him prominently featured in the offense, leading the team in touches and frequently handling the ball above the break. These inverted pick and rolls are just a staple of the offense now, and while the results have been mixed, stuff like this stops them from feeling stagnant like they were in the past. Darius Garland is another player who has benefited from this playstyle, as the Cavs are using him creatively off the ball to get him opportunities where he is catching with an advantage. He went off for 34 points in a big win over the Knicks recently, and if he's punishing drop defenders like this, then it becomes that much more difficult to stop the Cavs. And of course, while all of this is going on, the Cavs remain a brutal defensive team. Mobley and Allen have completely shut off the paint, while the increased role of Dean Wade has made them an even more versatile team. Wade is someone who I would keep an eye on, as he's legitimately one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, who can rotate into the paint and contest shots at the rim with a 6'9" frame and athleticism. Wade is also a career 37% 3-point shooter, and he already turned in a big game earlier this season. So if he stays in the starting lineup, his value as a defender, rebounder, and floor spacer would unlock this team in a way that we haven't seen before. Wade played 0 minutes with the core 4 last season, but Atkinson has gone straight to this lineup, and on paper it should be the perfect fit moving forward. So this has been a great start for the Cavaliers. I'm very interested to see how it holds up once their strength of schedule increases, but as of now, they have handled business as they should. And now for our last team, we have to talk quickly about the Boston Celtics. And look, I've already done a video on Boston, and while I don't want to dismiss them, this is kind of a situation where we already know why they are undefeated. They are the reigning champs, they have a roster that is versatile and can give you problems on all fronts, they shoot 3-pointers at an absurd rate, and they play fantastic defense to keep them in games even when their shots aren't falling. So all of us know who the Celtics are, but I'll still give credit where it's due. Jayson Tatum has been balling. He's currently doubling his pull-up 3-point attempts from last season and averaging 28 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. He's looked like an absolute stud and someone who should be in the MVP race, while Jaylen Brown, his running mate, has been lethal. He applies so much pressure on the defense each night that it's hard to game plan for Brown and Tatum at the same time. And then you can go down the roster and just keep naming guys. Peyton Pritchard is having a big start to the season, Derek White is great, Jrue Holiday. The Celtics just have so many guys who can pass, dribble, shoot, and play defense that when you put all of that together, you have a title contender and a team that is 4-0 to start the season, to no surprise. So that's going to do it for this episode of the NBA Notebook. If you enjoyed this one, then please drop a like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment on which team you think will stay undefeated the longest. And until then, I'll see you next time.